Let's start with a question. Probably one of the biggest, most personal questions you could ever ask. Are you actually in charge of your life? I mean, do you really have free will? It sure feels like we do, right? But the closer you look, well, the weirder it all gets. So, let's dive in. Okay, try a little experiment with me, right now. Just pay attention to what's happening in your own head. The very next thought that pops into your mind, did you choose it before it arrived? Or how about the one after that? They kind of just show up, don't they? And that leads to a pretty wild question.
You know, the philosopher and neuroscientist Sam Harris really nails the heart of the problem here. Our thoughts, our intentions, our desires, they just seem to bubble up from somewhere in the dark, already fully formed. It's like we're not the author, we're just the first person to read the sentence. So if you're not writing the script, who is? To even begin to get our heads around this, we have to start with the hardware itself. You know, that 3-pound lump of matter between your ears that creates your entire world. From a scientific standpoint, what is it? Well, it looks an awful lot like a machine. An incredibly, mind-bogglingly complex one, but a machine nonetheless. Just to give you a sense of scale, neuroscientist David Eagleman describes it like this. Your brain has about 86 billion neurons. And get this, each one of those tiny cells is as complex, as full of bustling activity as an entire city. So you've got 86 billion microscopic New Yorks and Tokyos inside your skull, all firing away to create, well, you. And if that wasn't crazy enough, those cities aren't working in isolation. Each neuron is connected to thousands of its neighbors. That means you have something like 500 quadrillion connections in your brain. It's this vast, tangled web, an electrical storm governed by the fundamental laws of physics and chemistry.
Now you're probably thinking, yeah, but my life, my experiences, they made me who I am. And you're absolutely right. But here's the thing, those experiences physically change the machine. This is where a field like epigenetics comes in. It shows how your environment, everything from the food you eat to the stress you feel, is literally flipping genetic switches on and off, physically sculpting the brain you have this very second. It's all just programming your biological hardware.
So here's the bottom line from this perspective. When scientists look at this incredible chain of cause and effect, genes triggering proteins, neurons firing because of other neurons firing, your environment shaping those connections, there's just no empty space. There's no gap where some you could step in and make a choice that wasn't already caused by everything that came before it.
Okay, but what about the feeling? I mean, it just feels like I'm in charge. It feels like I decided to say this sentence. This is where the whole thing gets even more bizarre. The argument isn't just about the physical brain. It's about whether our own experience of control is even real.
Now, this quote sounds like a total riddle, right? But what Sam Harris is getting at here is something really subtle. He's saying that if you pay super close attention to your own mind, you'll find that you don't even have the feeling of free will. He claims the illusion itself is an illusion.
Just think about a time you did something you regret, maybe something embarrassing you said. That feeling of regret is totally wrapped up in this powerful belief that you could have acted differently in that moment. You could have just kept your mouth shut. Well, that feeling that you could have done otherwise, that's the real heart of the debate. Let's try a little thought experiment. Imagine we could rewind the tape of the universe to the second right before you made a choice. Every single atom is in the exact same spot. Your brain is in the exact same chemical and electrical state. With all the causes being identical, could the effect, your choice, be any different? The laws of physics would say no. That would be like dropping a ball and expecting it to fly upwards this time.
So it sounds like a pretty airtight case against the kind of free will we all think we have. But hang on. What if we're just defining freedom all wrong? Let's look at this from a completely different angle.
The physicist Brian Greene has a really cool way of thinking about this. Just compare a person to, say, a rock. A rock has a pretty simple internal structure, right? And its range of behaviors is, well, it's not huge. It basically just sits there. But humans, we have this spectacularly complex organization that gives us this enormous range of possible behaviors. And this offers us a new way to think about freedom. Maybe our freedom isn't some magical power to defy cause and effect. Maybe our freedom is our liberation from the simple, rigid behaviors of things like rocks. The sheer variety of things we can do, talk, love, build, dream, that itself is a kind of freedom that is absolutely worth celebrating.
But before we settle on any single answer, we have to be humble. We have to admit that science is still young. What we know is a tiny island in a vast ocean of what we don't know. So what if our whole way of looking at this problem is missing a giant piece of the puzzle?
David Eagleman tells this fantastic story. Imagine a Kalahari bushman who finds a radio. He's never seen one. He starts playing with it, turns a knob, and hears voices. So he opens it up and sees a bunch of wires. He pulls one wire out, and the voices stop. He puts it back, the voices return. His theory? The voices are created by the spirits in the wires. Now, he's not technically wrong, the wire's necessary, but he's missing the bigger picture entirely, right? He has no idea about radio waves or broadcast towers hundreds of miles away.
And that leads to this really powerful question. Are we the Bushmen? We stimulate a part of the brain and an arm moves, so we conclude the brain is the ultimate cause of everything. But how can we be sure we aren't just looking at the wires, completely oblivious to something more fundamental about reality that we just don't have the tools to see yet?
Okay, so after all of this mind-bending theory, why should you care? What does any of this actually mean for your day-to-day life? Well, it turns out that shifting your view on free will can completely change how you see yourself and everyone else.
Seriously, think about it for a second. If every single person is just the product of their genes and their environment, two things they had zero control over, what does that do to our ideas about blame, about credit, about hatred? Suddenly, the entire moral landscape looks very, very different. Sam Harris argues that really internalizing this can be incredibly freeing. If someone hurts you, you can see them not as an evil agent, but as someone who was profoundly unlucky. Unlucky to have the brain, the genes, and the life that led them to that action. The logic for hating them just melts away. And the same goes for yourself. That feeling of shame, of cringing regret over your past, it can start to loosen its grip when you realize you couldn't have done anything else. This quote really just sums it all up, doesn't it? When you look at people's lives, their successes and their failures, what you're really seeing is the result of luck. The profound luck of being born with a certain brain, to certain parents, in a certain place and time. And recognizing that can lead to a much deeper sense of humility and empathy.
And this is a really, really important point. This isn't about letting people off the hook or saying there are no consequences. Dangerous people still need to be stopped. But it changes our reasoning. We move away from a desire for revenge and towards a more compassionate approach focused on understanding and preventing future harm. So that's where we land. If you didn't truly author your greatest triumphs, and you weren't truly to blame for your worst mistakes, what's left? Well, maybe what's left is gratitude for the good fortune, compassion for the bad, and a deep sense of wonder at this mysterious ride we all find ourselves on. Thanks for tuning in.